Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Today, we're joined by Tom Jones. I'm going to basically hand the stage to you. So if you can explain to the audience a little bit about who you are and what you do, that would be amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, Ryan, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show. And yeah, Tom Jones. Currently, I am an executive vice president for Rocket Source here based out of Salt Lake City, Utah. Rocket Source is a boutique enterprise consulting firm. A lot of people, especially here in the US, are familiar with, Gartner, McKinsey, those types of, organizations that help Fortune 500 companies solve really difficult problems. We do the exact same thing, just in a very specialized way. We focus more on the digital experience, and we've got a methodology that's based in human behavior. So, really high level summary of that is we align the brand why with the customer why. Very simple way of saying it.
What actually got you involved in, like this space and joining a company that you've joined?
Great question. So I'm an old hand, as they say, in the sales and revenue operations world. I started out 25 years ago in B2B sales, climbed the ladder, had various management positions, just, slowly grinded and worked my way up. And eventually this opportunity to head the, strategic partnerships and sales here at Rocket Source presented itself, and I took it. So, again, a lot of background in B2B sales, and just, from everything from SMBs up to mid-market to enterprise organizations.
That's super cool. So like what actually initially got you interested in sales? Because some people say you've got sales in you or you don't, right? Have you ever heard that saying before? It's like you're either born a salesperson or you're not. Like, do you agree with that? Like, what kind of made you go down the career path of sales yourself?
Right, right. No, yeah. I mean, we've all heard that, right? I don't know that I necessarily agree with that, Sure, there are people who are naturals at speaking well and presenting well, but at the end of the day, sales has evolved significantly in the last couple of decades, as you're well aware. And there was an old saying, when I first started in B2B sales, and maybe some of your audience are familiar with it, but back in the day, we talk about a show horse versus a workhorse, right? There were those people who could go out and present well and speak well, and they kind of rested on those laurels, if you will. But then there were the people that grinded, right? They did the monotonous admin work, follow-up work that maybe the other person didn't do, that show horse didn't do. And I believe in the beginning I was probably more of one of those show horses, because I spoke well, I presented well, I was comfortable being uncomfortable, which I think is critical for not just sales, but a lot of different roles that applies to, I feel. But really, the reason for me was I just enjoy people. If you want to ask me what my why was to get into sales, it was just I enjoy being around people and interacting with people. That was my why that started this journey for sure.
And you know what's so funny is I literally, you can still hear me, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Yeah. Like what's so funny is in the previous podcast I had before I jumped on this one, I was actually having a discussion with the like with the guest about just me being interested in people. Like I'm generally interested in people and what people have going on for themselves and what people are involved in. And I think that's what helps me to sell. That's what helps me to, keep a conversation flowing, is that I'm just generally interested in, individuals. So it's actually really interesting that you mentioned that. And then like what kind of advice have you got for, people that may not be as familiar with sales as, somebody like yourself? Let's say, for example, they need to start making sales because they're in the world of business, or they have a, like a startup company and they need to start making sales for themselves. Like, what kind of advice would you give to somebody that's, kind of approaching new waters?
You know what, Ryan, you made a great call out there, and you used the word generous, right? Or
Yeah,
genuine, excuse me,
genuine.
genuine.
Yeah.
Um, and it's unfortunate. There's a lot of bad actors out there these days that present sales. Let's just call them the Lambo guys, right?
Yeah.
Let's just call them the Lambo guys, right? And they
Or a
make
snake oil salesman.
right, right, fair enough, yeah. But they present sales as this sexy lifestyle and fast-paced lifestyle. And you know what? I'm sure in some instances, especially with B2C, it can be, right? But for
Yeah.
those who, maybe are just trying to get started, um, being genuine. Love
Uh-huh.
that word you use, being genuine and real, right?
Thank you.
We could sit here all day long and talk about lead gen, demand gen, closing techniques, whatever. But at the end of the day, if you're genuine and you truly care about the person that you're facing, that you're trying to present this product or service to, and you feel that it will truly help them solve a problem that they have, that's all that's really the best advice I could give somebody. Be genuine, right? Just
Yeah.
be a good person. Do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it, right? I
Uh-huh.
see so many young salespeople that, they love the sexiness of it, but on that first initial call, if they don't close or they don't get a next meeting,
They're demotivated.
they're done, right?
Yep.
And we have tons of data out there on, the percentage of reps, regardless of industry, that actually follow up, with a prospect a second time, right? And it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
You know, depending on the data you're looking at, could be, as little as 20%
Yeah.
within, one given industry of reps actually follow up after an initial call a second time, you
Yeah.
know? I mean, think about that. So,
Yeah, no, like you have to be super resilient, like you have to be used to, people telling you no, or like just people just generally not being interested, and you've got to not take it to heart, and I think a lot of like especially newcomers, like, like that's what they get kind of misconfused, like they kind of take everything personally. And that's something that I've had to, learn like over the years, is that you can't take everything personal. Maybe somebody just has no use case for whatever your product or service is in their business, or maybe they're already working with somebody else, or, maybe they just don't want to invest in whatever it is that you're trying to sell them. So I think it's just about, having that level of understanding, but also having that level of resilience to, hearing more no's than you'll ever hear yes. Like for every 100 calls, you might get 99 no's, but if you just hear one yes, then like that's the difference between making a sell and not making a sell. So when it comes to sales, it's just the law of averages, isn't it? So if you're trying to make sales, you've got to put in more work. You've got to be more productive.
no, 100% agree with that. And one thing that you said there that I think is really important, especially for newer salespeople
Yeah.
who, who do have that work ethic and that grind to just keep going, is guess what? Your product or service may not be a good fit for everybody,
Yeah.
right? You don't want to go down that road of trying to put that, round peg into a square hole, as they say,
Yeah.
right? And that's okay. That's okay. Like you spoke to, you can't take that personally. You just move on, because yes, to a point, I do agree it is a law of averages. Now, I think you can, improve your odds in that game a little bit. And I think, my opinion is a lot of sales work's done on the front end, right? It's done in the qualification, especially in our B2B world.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of work that can be done on the front end through research. I'll just give you a real world example that I was doing yesterday and earlier today, right? So I've got a client that I'm going after that's a very large what we call a BPO,
Yeah.
right? Business process outsourcing organization. And they've got a specific problem that, I was able to identify in initial discovery call. Well, I'm not very educated on that problem that they're having. So I spent time in like Reddit subgroups
Yeah.
for that company, specific to that organization, to really get a sense of this problem and kind of get my the boots on the ground, if you will, experience with
Yeah.
so I can align better with their problem so I can help solve it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm doing that. It goes back to what we just spoke to a minute ago, because I care
Yeah.
and I'm genuine. I genuinely want to help this client solve this problem, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's, man, I think that's so important, especially in our world, with AI evolving and things just getting more and more driven by tech.
Yeah.
And we're losing some of that, personalization, right? And I really think the organizations, no matter how big or small, that can figure out personalization while implementing their tech stacks, whether that be MarTech, whatever, they can solve that personalization equation are going to do really well. Same with sales. If you're B2C, B2B doesn't matter. The more you can personalize your pitch and what you do and how you help people to that individual person, the better you're going to do within your given field, of sales, regardless of industry. Again, B2C, B2B doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. And like just, kind of piggybacking off of what you just said, like even for me, right? So before when we initially booked this podcast, I sent you, like a list of questions, kind of as like a guideline. But
Yeah.
for me, like I literally in every podcast that I've ever done, because I've done more podcasts than, than this. But I don't ever look at that list. I just use the list as like, a guideline, or, if a particular question needs to come up, then I could always revert back to it. But with me, like because I'm generally interested in people, and because I'm generally interested in, conversation, and, like just finding out more, naturally, things just come to my head, questions come to my head, and that's what actually allows, these podcasts to flow naturally and authentically as well. And, that links back to, the genuine word, right? Like I'm all about authenticity. So, I would prefer, because I like watching a lot of podcasts, and I prefer the podcasts that are less kind of staged and constructed, because like it seems more like an interview, and sometimes it's just like there's no real substance about behind it, and it could be a little bit boring. So for me, yeah, I'm just the type of person that I like to fire questions that come to my head based on what you said.
No, man, totally agree. I love that it's organic, right? And it's
Yeah, that's
genuine.
it.
This conversation that we're having is genuine. It's just two sales guys having a conversation, right? That I think that's awesome for sure. And another thing that I'd like to point out as I get thinking about, newcomers to sales is that, there's an integrity part to sales that I don't think gets talked about enough, right?
Definitely.
Because, salespeople in general probably legitimately with good cause kind of get a bad rap, right? They've got this negative association
Connotation.
of
Yep.
being sleazy, right? Especially here in the U.S. Now I can't speak for
The
the
UK.
or the rest of the world, but I have to assume it's
It's the
probably the
same.
same.
It's the same thing.
You
But do you know
know?
what? But like, do you know what's even more funny is that, like the previous guest that I had on a podcast, he has actually worked like internationally, right? Like in sales, and he's actually worked in New York as well. He actually worked on Wall Street. And one thing that I've realized personally as well, like especially because I used to sell corporate roundtable events to like to the American market, but I was selling it to like vice presidents of like global companies like
Yeah.
Google, Microsoft, like you name it, right? And for me personally, I think maybe it's because I have, like the British accent, and it's because I'm from the UK, but I also have like, like a love for American culture. I think for me, it was a lot easier for me to sell to Americans and the American market than it was for me to kind of sell to people over here, because especially in London, because London is like so business like, and people get numerous calls from all these different kind of people every day. I think that they automatically have their guard up, and whenever they kind of hear you and you have a certain tone or way about you, like they automatically think, oops, a salesperson. And as you said, because of the bad connotation behind salespeople, they automatically put their guard up. But whenever I
Yeah.
was talking to people in a foreign market and in America, for me personally, it was just a lot easier for me to sell to them as opposed to people over here.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I mean, you've got cultural nuances you need to be aware of, right? And what's funny about that is that roundtable product that you were selling or service you were selling,
Yeah.
I've been a part of those. So
Oh, really?
yeah, here at Rocket Source, we actually used one last year to kind of drum up, some new logos for us. It was interesting. It was an interesting experience. So, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
All right, like that's super cool. I wish I would have discovered you earlier, because I would have possibly sold you a spot at the
Right.
at the round table event. I like the mug as well, by the way. Like another thing, like quite a big thing actually, is I actually came across you from Alex Hormozi's YouTube channel. You actually joined one of his lives. So
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit more about that and how you discovered him, and like just yeah, like just everything behind you being on this channel?
Yeah, you bet, man. That was a great experience, and I'm sure a lot of your audience is familiar with Hormozi and what he does. But I'm just gonna say, in from my perspective, in my opinion, this is my opinion. He's probably the best right now
He
at
is.
giving business advice because you know
Yep.
what? Because he's genuine, like we're talking about. He's genuine. You don't get the sense of you're being sold anything,
Yep.
right? He doesn't have many paid products outside of his books that are on Amazon, which are incredibly, cheap.
Valuable and cheap. Have you got them,
Yeah.
by the way? I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Oh, I do. Yeah. Yeah, I do for sure.
Amazing. Okay,
Yeah.
amazing, amazing. Yeah, go on.
Um, I kind of joke with my coworkers and friends. I got a little bit of a man crush on him because I think
Okay.
he's legit, man. He just tells it like it is, and I don't think a lot of these influencers do that. I think they try to sell and sugarcoat things because they're trying to make money, right? They're
Yeah,
trying to
definitely.
get more sales. But anyway, getting back to Hormozi, so yeah, he had put a post out on LinkedIn and all of the platforms, Insta, Facebook, etc., that he was going to go live with a Q&A, and he wanted people to ask lead gen questions.
Yeah.
And I knew that most people were going to ask from a B2C perspective or a startup perspective. So I thought I'd throw him a little bit of a curveball because, as you probably know, Alex, he worked for one of the big five consulting firms here in the US right out of college, right?
Yeah.
He was in the government side. So I just thought I'd, throw a little bit of a curveball and ask him about lead gen from an enterprise B2B perspective, because that's what we do here at Rocket Source, right? And posted my question on LinkedIn, and somebody from his team reached out to me and said, "Hey, you're one of the five people that we selected from all the platforms to be on the Q&A and ask your question." So that's what led up to that event.
Like that is super cool and also insightful. And again, the reason that you was even on that call with him is, as you said, is because you actually, asked a question that's out of the box, right? That's different to what everyone else is asking, right? So that's kind of how you stood out, from the crowd. And to be a good salesperson, you have to stand out from the crowd, you have to think outside the box. So yeah, like that's actually very good creative thinking from, like from your side. And I'm pretty sure he gave you a lot of value on that call too.
Oh yeah, 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 undoubtedly, man. Like I said, that guy's legit. Really admire and respect what he's doing. And I don't know if you've seen the most recent, but he made a huge investment into the school
Oh
platform.
yeah, thank you.
Um,
Thank you as well for
yeah.
reminding that, because on the previous podcast that I just shot, I actually mentioned school.com, and I'm actually creating my own community on school.com where, I will be, teaching people about sales, about marketing, about the power of networking and the power of brands. So I'm actually really, really happy that you mentioned that.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a great platform and driven by him. And supported by him. It's going to do well. So I'm excited to see where that goes. And I think that's awesome that you're going to be a part of that platform, because that's going to be a platform that, with those communities, it will just disperse an incredible amount of value and knowledge, right?
No, a hundred
I'm
percent.
excited for all of that. Yeah.
A hundred
Yep.
percent. And like I'm gonna, like I want people like you, people like, the previous guest to, even, share some videos and, like some advice on sales as well, because I'll put that within that community too. And then, I will also, tag you and, like whatever else, like you've got going on or whatever it is that you want to promote within that community as well. So it's just kind of like my way of, helping other people out and, like just kind of leveraging the brand that I will create, with other people just to, kind of inspire upcoming entrepreneurs on their journey already, and people that are looking to get into entrepreneurship, because without sales you don't actually have a business, right? So like the most important thing about business is sales, right?
Yeah. And, on that note, everybody within the business is selling, right?
Yeah,
So let me give you this example. I used this
let's
yesterday
go.
with a client, right? So you go to like a McDonald's or, a Chick-fil-A, or it doesn't matter, any quick service food restaurant. You
Yeah,
think about if you think about the org chart in a business like that, probably the lowest position in that org chart is like the janitor or whoever's responsible for
definitely,
keeping it clean, right?
definitely.
And the here's the thing about, and I'm going to just kind of pivot a little bit, but I'll come back to this.
Yeah,
Um, COVID did a lot of things for our world, right? we took a step back. You know, a lot of people had to just stay home. Obviously, we're all very familiar with what trend or happened during COVID. To me, I think one of the most important things is people started to think about what's my purpose, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't have to be in the office or I don't have to be on the road, 5 days a week, 8, 10 hours a day, whatever it is, right? But not only that, now that's important, as we've seen, a lot of organizations, especially in the tech space, are now, 100% remote or they're hybrid and that's not going to change, right? But one thing I think we don't talk about enough is I think people had some time to reflect on what is my purpose? What am I doing, with this business? Do I really have impact? Am I really valuable? Right? Okay, so think about that. Let's go back to the quick service restaurant and the janitor, right?
Yeah.
So if you go into a McDonald's or a Chick-fil-A and you go into the restroom and it's just a total mess, right? And it's disgusting. And
You're not gonna want to eat there.
what does that do for your customer experience?
It ruins it.
Right. So point being is that janitor, and there's two perspectives that I want the audience to look at this from. Let's look at it from the employer perspective, right? So from the McDonald's perspective, how do they communicate to that janitor that they have purpose and can impact the business, right?
Yeah.
Well, great example right there. Hey, Mr. or Mrs. Janitor, you can impact the customer experience significantly by keeping things nice and clean and organized and easier for our guests to get access to, right? That's critical to our business, right? And
Yeah.
you're actually part of presenting our business or selling our business to our guests,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the kind of the employer side to look at that. And if it is communicated that way to that employee, that, hey, this is important. What you're doing is critical to the operations, the success, and the sales of this business. That helps them with their purpose and feeling purposeful when they go to work. Even though, maybe for you and I, it's like, yeah, that's not a job for me, but somebody is doing that and there's purpose to it, right? So I think that's something that organizations need to think a lot about with their staff. And that client that I referred to earlier, where I've been doing the research on the sub threads on Reddit, this initiative that we're trying to help with, just to kind of give you some context, they're an organization that has a churn rate of north of 100% with their employees. It's just the nature of the industry that they're in, right? They're doing call centers,
Right.
right?
Okay. Right.
So, what I've been charged with is, okay, how can we help this organization reduce that churn? Because obviously that churn rate is incredibly expensive for this enterprise organization, right? I mean, it costs them tens of millions of dollars a year to turn these employees over, because sometimes, the equipment that they ship these people who now work remote at home, like their laptop and stuff, doesn't get returned. Now they've got new training costs incurred, things of that nature, right? So how can we help this organization? Again, going back to the beginning of our conversation, we know what the problem is, right? How can we create a solution, right?
Yeah.
That's all we're doing, right? And it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what you're doing, right? But a part of that is so businesses are messy, right? Businesses are messy, they're complicated, they're complex. But why? Why are businesses messy? And the answer is because they're ran by people.
Yeah.
And people at the end of the day are just big balls of emotion, and they have lives. And we're, even though we're similar, we're way different. I mean, there's however many billion of us now, 7 billion of us. And
Yeah.
guess what? No two of us are exactly the same.
Yeah.
We have a different lens that we're looking at the world through, right?
Wow, like this is so crazy because again, I generally spoke about that with my previous guest too. So, I'm a strong believer in the law of attraction and manifestation and that things don't happen for no reason. So the fact that you even mentioned that is, like is mind-blowing to me as well personally, because I was talking about that before too. And, as you said, everybody's perception is different. We might all be living in the same reality, but we have a different perception based on, like where we were born, maybe like where we grew up, our own personal life experiences. so much to the point where we could both be looking at the same scenery and we can literally be, painting a picture on a canvas and both of our pictures will come out different, even though we're looking at exactly the same thing.
Yep. Yep. That's what we're talking about, right? So
Yeah.
knowing that, right? Knowing that, how do we implement that into our businesses, regardless of how big or small or industry or whatever? Because there's one common thread amongst all businesses. It's people.
People,
Right?
yeah, like, like we're in the people business.
And like you and I just agreed, we all have a different lens that we're looking at life through. We're all at a different point in our journey, right? And I'll take it back to this work that I'm doing with this prospective new client, right? So you think about the call center space. Well, okay, that could be, if I'm an employee, that lens that I'm looking at the world through could be, well, I'm a college person just trying to get through school, or maybe I'm a single mom who doesn't really have, a significant skill set, but I'm trying to build it and I'm trying to improve, right? So these are the personas that we're dealing with that we need to think through, right? How do we reach into those lives and positively affect the employee experience, understanding that, the lens that they're viewing the life through is different based on where they're at in their journey, right? So, and a lot of that is just asking questions, right? It's not necessarily things like NPS, right? Because NPS doesn't go deep enough, right? And I don't care if you're running a plumbing company that's got 5 employees, if you don't know what's going on within your employees' journey, right? And what they're dealing with, right? Because we all deal with life. You're not going to get the best out of that employee. You're not going to be able to provide the best employee experience. And as we all know, employee experience ultimately affects customer experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. Employee
So
experience does affect the customer experience. So like when it comes to your like your personal journey in sales, what would you say is like, like your biggest deal? Like if you'll be comfortable sharing that or like if you know it.
when you say, so maybe
Like
give me a
deal
little more
size. Yeah,
deal
like
size.
deal size.
Okay,
Yeah,
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 no, no,
yeah.
no, yeah, for sure. So my largest deal, because in the B2B world, you're working off of you provide a statement of work and then you get contracts, things of that nature, right? So the largest contract that I've been a part of was just a little under 7 million.
7 million. That's
Yeah.
great. And that will probably add to the title of this video now so we can actually, get some traction on it. So
Yeah, yeah, no
I
doubt, man. And here's the thing is, again, things are changing so quickly. So, when I first started back to, in the late 90s in B2B sales, it was a lot of that. I'm trying to think of an analogy that your audience will be familiar with, maybe like Wolf of Wall Street, or
Yep. Yep.
for those who are as old as me, Glengarry Glen Ross, right? Coffees for
I know.
closers,
Yep,
right?
yep, I know them. I know them.
That seriously was the environment, right? It was kind of macho, and there were some unfortunate parts of that, but things have now evolved, and a lot of that's being driven by obviously the internet, because
Yeah.
now consumers can validate all that information that show horse is spewing out of their mouth, right? If we go back to our
Yeah.
example earlier, right? The
Yeah.
show horse who presents really well, they talk really well. Okay, great. Okay, I'll follow up with you. Let me just validate all this information you're giving me about your product or service, right? So
Yeah.
now we've had to evolve out of necessity to, partially. Um, so it's interesting to see, and I hate using this example because I mean the guy's done really well for himself, but like Grant Cardone, right?
Yeah. I, li-
Um,
I like I like Grant Cardone. I've got his books, but go ahead.
but no, but that's what I'm talking about is he makes it seem so sexy and fun and exciting, and I love his content too. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, I do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think what that does for a lot of people, especially younger people, is it gives them a false sense of reality if they want to break into sales.
Definitely.
You know what I
Definitely.
mean? So while all that stuff is great, and I know Grant's making a lot of money and doing his thing, and that's awesome. And this isn't, I'm not saying anything negative about him. I'm just
Yeah,
saying that,
good. I want to get him on the show one day, so
yeah, no, I mean, I'd love that. I mean, I'd love to meet him because I think the guy's legit and he's got some great guidance to
yeah.
give. But I just think the culture, and that probably may not have even been his intent, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Where some of the others, I think the culture that's created is kind of a little misleading, right?
Yeah.
at the end of the day, man, sales is not sexy.
No, at
There are
all.
parts of it, there are parts of it that can be. When I get up in front of a group of 40, 50 people, now this is from a previous life. I don't do that currently, but when, I used to be a national sales manager for a large distributor here in the US, and I travel around the country and give pitches to, rooms full of people. That part's sexy, right? You
Yeah,
get
I
up,
love
you give
that
your
part too.
pitch. Yeah, right. But the real deals, especially, like I spoke to my $7 million deal, that was a lot of grinding. That was a lot of admin work. That was a lot of back and forth with conversations, right? That was a lot of emotion, up, down. And that took time, right? And that's another thing, sales cycle, especially in B2B. And if you're in a really technical sale, you've got 12, 24-month sales cycles. Think about the
Tendering
amount.
process.
Right, right. And just think about your personality types. To go 24 months not knowing if you're going to close that deal or not, but it could take that long. I mean, just think about the type of personality you need to achieve that, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. 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 No, it's true. It's very true, like it definitely takes like a certain level of, and I'm gonna say the word again, a certain level of resilience, a certain level of strength, a certain level of self-development even, like, I'm constantly a person that, is self-developing and, seeks self-development. So, I watch a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of podcasts, I read a lot of books, you know what I mean? Like I'm doing everything that it takes in order to make me a better version of me. And to make you a good salesperson, I think that's, what it's about. It's about, constantly educating yourself and learning from other sales professionals, like, and people that have really done it, as you said, not so much people that have been selling courses, but people that have actually like really done the nitty gritty stuff. And as you said, it's not a sexy thing, marketing even is not a sexy thing. Entrepreneurship is actually very lonely, so even that is not a sexy thing, but it's marketed as that because that's what actually allows these people to sell their courses. And that's actually gonna piggyback onto another section that I wanted to talk to you about, which was AI and sales. Like, what do you think is going to happen or is currently happening with AI and like traditional sales, like cold calling, emailing, face-to-face meetings? Like, what do you kind of think is happening with that? And like, would you predict will happen in the future?
no, no, great question. Before I answer that, I want to say one thing I love that you just said about self-improvement. Just if I had to nail two things to be as successful in anything, not just sales, but definitely it applies to sales, but anything in life, two things. And I'm gonna share with you and your audience. I don't have a formal education.
Wow.
Like I never went to college. I never, high school diploma is all I got, right?
That's like
And I'm
me.
pretty,
That's like me.
yeah, I'm pretty proud of that fact, right? Because everybody I work with who are great people, they've got multiple degrees, and our clients multiple degrees, yada yada, and that's great. That's the journey they took. I just took a different journey. But the two things that have helped me achieve, the success that I've enjoyed and been fortunate to have, one is be comfortable being uncomfortable,
Yeah.
right?
I've heard
Put
I've heard
myself
that
in
quote as well so
I
many
put
times.
myself in rooms when I was young and still coming up where my mouth was still twice as big as my ears. I didn't know that lesson yet, right?
Yeah, two
I
ears
put
and one
my
mouth.
right. Yeah, for a reason. But I put myself in very uncomfortable situations to make myself uncomfortable. That's number
Yeah.
one. Second thing, and this is what I love about what you just said, is always learning.
Yeah.
You have to be a perpetual student,
Of
especially
life.
right, right, right. Especially today with everything evolving so quickly with tech and AI, and just be a perpetual student. Always be willing to learn, right? So
Uh-huh.
anyway, those two
And
things,
then
man. All right.
and then now when it comes to AI and souls, like, would you like do you because me personally, right? And somebody watching this can probably steal this idea, or you might even know of a company or software, whatever that does this. But what I have seen, right? I've seen something very, very interesting. And I actually spoke to somebody that develops like an AI sales system, and he actually does like different voices for like the AI sales system. It's some kind of like virtual assistant type thing. But I basically spoke to him about a video that I watched, and these guys were genius because what they would do is they would pre-record a conversation. So, like, say for example, if they're reaching out and they're prospecting, they will record that conversation and they will basically take snippets out of what they've said, and then they'll create like like a folder like with different with like different sentences and different words. So then whenever they're going into a new call, they just press play on different parts of like of those files, and it kind of allows them to do other things. Like, I don't think that they found a way to do it seamlessly yet, like to the point where it just automatically does that. But I'm pretty sure with AI you'll be able to do something like that. But I was actually blown away by these, like, yeah, like just by the whole idea of that, how you could send it off to a virtual assistant somewhere in Thailand or something, and they could like, use your voice and click this file here in that folder and follow through the whole conversation. And you could do it at scale, like based on your own voice too, and it'll think it's you just from pre-recorded conversations.
Yeah, I mean, there's some exciting, interesting, and honestly, scary things that are evolving with AI. And what you're speaking to, I can see that being scalable and ultimately being used by a lot of organizations. But I think what's going to determine whether that is relevant to an organization is price point, right?
Yeah, yeah,
There's
exactly.
going to be certain things, and again, regardless of industry, that you're just not going to be able to get away with just using straight AI.
Yeah, and like, like then it leads to the, like to the problem of compliance issues as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, and so the way that I have seen AI up to this point, which we use AI internally, right, on
Right.
client calls to transcribe key takeaways, tasks, things
Yeah.
of that nature. But one real huge opportunity I see with AI from a sales perspective is coaching and training.
Yes.
What I mean by that is because I mean, if you're familiar with AI, you know how it works. AI is just, it's a large language model
That's
that
it.
effectively you have to provide input,
Yeah.
right? To that input, then, because it's generative, you need a large data set for that output to be based on, right?
Yeah, it's a
So what I
learning
mean by
machine.
that is, so the more data you can provide that AI, that large language model, right?
The
And the
better.
better input or prompt you can provide it, the better your output you're going to get. Okay, so let's think about this from a sales perspective. If I have 100 sales calls as a sales rep, let's say,
Yeah.
and AI has been a part of all of those, right? Then, and there's tools like this now. I can get them to you after the call, but there are tools now, especially for like call center sales reps,
Yep.
where everything is recorded. And then at the end of the call or even in call, there's strategic guidance given by the AI
That's super cool. Like
on
that.
what,
Yeah, please share
yeah,
that with me. Like that is insane.
yeah, in real time, right? So, you think about, hey, Mr. Smith, reaching out today because, well, we'll use the example everybody hates, right? We've got an extended warranty for your car, right? And so based on the response from that prospect, the AI in real time, based on all the previous calls that that person has made, or maybe not even that salesperson, but all of the salespeople combined, right? You're feeding it all this data. But now in real time, you get that, hey, Mr. Smith, I'm calling about your call's extended warranty. And, the prospect's like, well, I'm not really interested. The AI, because it's got all this data in real time, is generating a response that is more probable to continue the conversation than what that human rep could do.
Wow. Like that, like wow, like that is insane. But like with that, do you have to use that specific software, or could you kind of like connect it to, I don't know, like Skype or like, Zoom call or Voyage or whatever it is that you use?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, right? And because it's going to need to get the data somewhere.
Oh, what? So you can connect, like,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
actual tool you're talking about. Like I could connect it to Skype, for example, and then it could like track sorry, give me feedback on like my Skype calls
Mhm.
when I'm dialing out.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
and listen, I'm not a data scientist or really smart
Yeah.
that way, but regardless of platform, you can take previous calls if they're recorded. If your organization has these recordings, right, which a lot of
Yeah,
them do for coaching and training currently, you
definitely.
take these calls And I'm sure there are organizations that just have like, I mean, just gigabytes of call data, right? And
Definitely.
you put them into, a large language model and you base your training and coaching just off of that, right?
That is wow, like that is yeah, no, like that is insane. Like that's something that I would definitely look to implement in my current strategy, and I guess like pivoting forward, like what is like your 1 to 5 year kind of plan for yourself and like just in like the world of sales.
No, that's thank you for asking that.
You're welcome.
So for myself, I love the organization that I'm working with now. Um, because where I came from wasn't I didn't have a tech background, right? I was always the people guy, right? I'm the
Right.
people guy. I sell. I can lead sales teams, organizations, but my tech background was very lacking. But I love where I'm at. I'm going to be here for the next 5 years for sure, and just to grow, just to
Yeah.
improve, right? To be better, next month than I am this month, and continue. You know, I truly live by the two pieces of guidance that I said just a few minutes ago, and that is, you know, I want to be uncomfortable, and honestly, I'm uncomfortable every day I come to work because of the subject matter, right?
Yeah.
We're leaning into AI, large language models, machine learning from an enterprise perspective. I don't know a whole lot about that. But guess
Yeah.
what? I'm going to get uncomfortable and I'm going to learn because I'll be responsible for producing revenue based off of these services that we're going to be launching, around those technologies.
Right.
So I will continue to make myself uncomfortable and I will continue to learn to consume content, whether that's books or podcasts or having these conversations like you and I are, right? I'm
Yeah.
learning it when I speak. Um, that's honestly, it's that simple, right? I honestly feel that as people, especially people who are in, sales or, business in general, we're really good. We're excellent at making simple things complex,
Yeah. I like that.
but we're
I
we're
like that.
not good. We're not good at making complex things simple, right?
Wow.
Uh, and in my new world, in this tech world that I've now been in for a little over 2 years, I'm trying to take complex things like machine learning, large language models, AI, advanced data and analytics, things like that, and make them simple because I have to be able to communicate and convey, our value proposition surrounding these technologies to a broad audience. And if I can't simplify these things, not everybody is an expert in Google Analytics
Yeah.
or, not everybody knows what an EDW is or a CDP. And, so when I'm speaking to these audiences, I have to be able to take complex things and make them simple. And I think there's a good lesson there for all of us, even in our personal lives, right? We tend to make things a little more complex maybe than they need to be, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, man, I know it's really simple, but my 5 year plan is to stay where I'm at, grow with the organization, and just keep making myself uncomfortable and learning.
And then like what does a future look like for, Rocket Source, because obviously you spoke about, what your like what your personal goals are, but like what is like the company's, kind of goals going forward?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So we're a pretty young organization, although we've been around now for about 9 years. It's only really been the founders and a small team up until about a year ago, where we started to scale a little bit, and a
Yeah.
lot of our growth has been expansion revenue from existing clients. Now, keep in mind, what we do is very unique because our ideal customer profile is the Fortune 500,
Yeah.
right? So you're talking about a
Big
small,
accounts.
yeah, right? And you know how it is to sell to those, right?
Yeah.
It's not like you're out there, doing your marketing and sales like a one to many type thing,
Yeah.
right? This is a one to a few type sales situation, right? But anyway, so your ICP is Fortune 500 companies, the C-suite, and we're competing against the big boys, the Gartners, the McKinseys, right? Trying to provide strategy to these organizations. Now that was done by design. One, because they're just honestly easier to work with than small businesses, right?
Of course.
Small businesses, just by nature and necessity, can kind of drag agencies into the weeds a little bit. And they're, again, they're just not as efficient to work with as enterprise is. So that was by design. The other reason, honestly, is because it's hard.
Yeah.
And the founders just like to do hard things. We all,
Yeah.
one thing that's unique about Rocket is everybody who's a part of the organization loves hard things,
Right. That's
right?
good.
Kind of thrive in it, right? But to, more definitively answer your question, I'm really focused on strategic partnerships right now. And an interesting note on that Q&A I did with Hormozi, I actually picked up a strategic partner from that call.
Oh, look at
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So
Congratulations. Look at that.
I met a guy on there from a company called Tipulti. They are a global automation or automated process or processing payment portal type provider. So yeah.
That is super cool. And you've actually, just plugged them on this podcast too. So I'm pretty sure that he'll
Yeah.
be happy when he watches this video and he sees that you've
No,
actually.
met a great guy on there. He reached out to me after the podcast. His name is Craig. And yeah, we've been able to send him some business, right? We
That
sent
is,
him a client, right? And that's another, key takeaway for maybe somebody who's newer in sales. And again, don't care about your industry or, if it's B2C or B2B, strategic partnerships are incredibly valuable, right?
yeah.
They give you that golden handshake. I
Yeah.
mean, if you have to choose between knocking on a cold door or getting an introduction from somebody who's already got a relationship with that,
Introduction any day.
right? Yeah, 100%. So
And yeah, like funny enough as well, like again, previous podcast, we spoke all about, just the power of referrals, the power of word of mouth, the power of relationship building, and like just, how much easier it is to, do business with somebody based off of like a genuine referral, as opposed to kind of like cold marketing towards them. Do you know what I mean? And having to, as you said, like harness that relationship from ground up. It's a lot better when somebody actually introduces you, especially if it's like a potential client or, in your instance, somebody that you've actually referred business to. So when it comes to strategic partnerships, I am also, a strong believer in strategic partnerships. And when I create this community on school, that's what I'm looking to do. Like, I'm looking to leverage the communities that I already belong to, and I'm looking to pull them all together. So right now, I'm connecting the dots between different founders of different organizations and like event groups. And what I'm doing is I'm connecting the dots because this event group B might have 500 people in it, and then event group A might have 300 people in it. But if you pull them together, they now collectively have 800 people in it. So that's kind of what it is for me. How can I leverage different communities? And then how can I, build off of, those leveraged communities myself?
yeah, 100%. You're networking, right? And that's
That's
awesome,
it.
man. You
That's
have to
it.
talk to people, right? You have to, if you're not comfortable talking to people, do it. Get uncomfortable, right? I'll give you a great example this morning, because I'm working in the office, so I'm staying at a
Cold
local.
shower, right? Cold shower.
No, I mean that's a different subject, but yes, I do like that too. But no, I was at the hotel this morning before coming into the office, and there was a gentleman, in a nice suit in the breakfast area where I was. I just started a conversation. Well, it turns out that he's part of a large managed services provider here in Salt Lake City, where our office is, and we exchanged information. Now, will that go anywhere? Maybe not. But guess what? It's another little tool I've got in my network tool belt. So
Yeah, like that's super, like that's super, super cool too. And in terms of like, strategic partnerships, because like we're gonna get, like quite a lot of people watching, like yeah, watching this podcast and watching all of the other podcasts. And these are gonna be, founders themselves, these are gonna be entrepreneurs themselves, this, like, these are even gonna be like top CEOs eventually, like that's the level that I'm actually looking to build this podcast up to. So like what kind of strategic partnerships are you looking for, like for your business? What strategic partnerships are you open to?
no, awesome, man. Great question. And thank you for asking it. Right now, what we're looking at are these big creative agencies, these agencies that just do design work and things like that.
Okay,
Um,
so when you say design work, like what exactly do you mean? Because obviously like that can vary.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So mainly web design, right? These
Okay.
agents who are driving, building these sexy sites for large organizations, right? Who really have a good understanding of how to drive good user experience with a good user interface on their site. I mean, we're all familiar with a bad user interface on a website, but driving good UI, UX, those agencies that don't necessarily have a data and analytics side, because we're coming into an era of business where these large organizations and these large mid-market companies are going to have to align sales and marketing, right?
Definitely. And that's something that I've realized as well, actually, when I was working at a Fortune 500 global company. I'm not going to mention their name, but just a lot of, like their processes are quite outdated, and as you said, because it's a Fortune 500 company, because it's so large, it's not like I can go up to the director, that's sitting over there on the table, or the CEO that's sitting over there on the table, and, bring forward an idea to him. It's like, I have to talk to the manager in my team, and that's probably not gonna go anywhere. So it's like it kind of like makes me feel like, like I'm less valuable in that company, because there's so much different stages I need to go to actually talk to the guy at the top. And because
Yeah.
I'm still like kind of within like a mid-level position, like does he even want to listen to what I say anyway? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's definitely a real feeling that I think a lot of people have, right? So, but if you think about the history of sales and marketing, right, it's always been one of turmoil because both teams, both business units want credit for the sale, right? Like
Yeah.
they're fighting. There's this friction because, like, marketing wants credit for the quality of the leads they're sending to sales because the leads are so good. That's why sales are getting the sales, right? And then sales' argument is, well, no, your MQLs, they suck. It's just because of our ability that we're getting these sales, right? And that's really kind of a basic summary of the scenario, but that's the friction that these teams are experiencing.
Yeah, no,
And so,
100%. Go ahead.
no, I'm sorry, man. What you're going to find is the companies, the organizations that align sales and marketing, meaning that the messaging, the brand message is being crafted by both teams together, right?
Yeah.
So let's think about this. Let's walk through what I'm speaking to here. So let's say you're a large organization that maybe you're a major electronics you sell processors, things of that nature, right? And you've got your website and you've got your sales side, right? Who's working with Salesforce and they know
Yeah.
what key accounts they're working on, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And again, it's just going to be a basic example. So would it benefit you if marketing could tell you if any of your key accounts that you're working on are visiting the site? And if so, which pages they're visiting?
Would it
Would that,
benefit me, like personally?
as a salesperson,
Yeah, 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 of course. Of
right?
course it
But
would.
that's what I'm talking about. That's just the basic thing that's not happening in these organizations because they don't
It's
want to
true.
talk to each other, right?
It's true.
I mean, so if I'm like, let's just say, going back to that example, I am trying to get into Compaq, right?
Yeah.
And I know that the CIO of Compaq has visited our site, and I know exactly their journey on our site, where they started, where they ended, right? Did they download any assets, right? A PDF, anything like that? If I had that data and I could put that into my Salesforce and update that and have that information, then it goes back to what we were talking about earlier in our conversation. I could personalize my message to my contacts at Compaq, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
so and so, I know you're interested in this because I saw you download this gated asset. You had to put in your email, etc. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Just a
yeah. And I
example, but you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think that's what, people like, Alex Hormozi, is doing, and all of these like top entrepreneurs. I think that, like the data aspect of like of their social media or of their websites is what they're really harnessing. And then I guess I have like another question just based on the strategic partnership she was talking about. Obviously you told me about what, Rocket Source is all about, and, like what you guys do, what you guys offer. But then obviously, like you have like like a separate side which is more like website creation, if I'm correct, for like, these big for these big giants. So then my thing is like like do you feel like you could be possibly like kind of like oversaturating what it is that you offer by having that as like a additional strategic partnership.
So are you suggesting that maybe there's too much overlap in the services that we offer?
I'm not suggesting, but like I'm more like asking, yeah, like like
Yeah,
do you
yeah, no,
feel
that's
like
valid, man. Yeah, yeah, it's definitely something we think about.
yeah,
What we try to stay out of. Well, let me phrase it this way. We don't want to be tacticians, right? We want to
okay,
be strategists, right? What I mean
definitely,
by that is, and I'll just give you a real world example from one of our largest clients.
please.
We have the largest data center provider in the world as a client,
That's
right?
insane.
Right. They recently made an acquisition. Well, not recently, it was about 3 years ago. They made an acquisition of a competitor over in the MEA market, right? So
No
Europe,
way.
Middle East, Asia, right?
Yeah,
Um, what they decided they needed to do was instead of having a different website in each country, right? From a brand perspective, you want to have the same experience, right? So
definitely.
they launched an initiative called one.com where they have their domestic US site, but then they just acquired, this organization from EMEA that had a bunch of different country sites,
Okay.
right? Across, I can't remember, 30, 40 countries, something like that, right? But what they wanted to do was create one experience, one digital experience that was uniform across the globe.
Yeah,
So if you got onto the UK site, or if you got on the China site, it looked exactly the same experience as if you were in the US.
yeah, as it
That's a
should be.
that's a huge undertaking, right? Because you're talking, it was a little over 10,000 pages under management, right?
That's insane.
So going back to the example that I'm giving, we provided the strategy for that, right?
You guys provided the
We
strategy.
provided the strategy of, you want it to look like this, you want it to provide this type of user experience, but we didn't do any of the dev work or things of that nature. We didn't do the tactical stuff. We just provided the strategy.
That makes sense. So like like you guys kind of approached it from like like a consultation, like doing like the consultancy like for them, I
Yeah,
suppose,
yeah,
rather than the
exactly.
actual
100%. Yeah. And
uh,
by the way, just to kind of pat ourselves on the back, after that site launched, engagement in their target audience, which was the largest global 2,000 companies in the world, engagement by that segment was up like 298% year over year. So,
that's insane. That's
yeah.
insane. Like congratulations,
Yeah.
congratulations there. Like that's quite a big milestone. So like in
But
regard,
no, sorry, man. But to answer your question, yes, there's a little concern there that we could have some overlap, right, with
yeah,
these strategic partners. But again, it's like any good relationship. You're
yeah.
very transparent and you set expectations on the front end. And then you check in occasionally to ensure everybody's, meeting those expectations, right?
Yeah, 100%. And like, how did you actually sell that, like that consultation, like how did you package it? Like, like what's the process? Because, like it's a lot harder to, sell any kind of consultation than selling an actual tangible service or a tangible, product. So like what did that look like for you?
No, awesome, awesome question. And it goes back to what we've been speaking to this entire time, being genuine. The work's done on the front end, right? You have to sell the vision, right? And Hormozi talks a lot about this when he in his book, his Creating Offers book, right? You have to sell what the value and the vision is to your prospect, right? What do they want? What do they want to achieve? Well, in this case, it was, they wanted to increase engagement from the global 2000, right? So we
Yeah,
had to paint a picture. We had to paint a picture of our strategy visually that showed them a roadmap on how we could get them there, right?
right.
And it's not easy, man. I mean, especially on these large, long sales cycle engagements where you're talking millions of dollars of contract value, right? It takes literally months of preparation to put a deck together to take to the C-suite of this organization to show them that you understand what they're trying to achieve. You understand their problem, right? Like we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Because we're sales is similar to being a doctor, right? You're trying to diagnose symptoms and then provide solutions, right?
I love that. I love that. And funny enough, I've actually heard that quite a few times as well. And I think that, like that's the best approach to, to kind of have. And funny enough, I actually heard that in Grant Cardone's book on Audible, funny
Yeah.
enough. Yeah, when I was listening to it in the gym. But no, like it's very, very true. And then I guess, to kind of wrap the like the interview up, like what kind of questions have well, not questions, but what kind of advice have you got for anyone that's in a similar position to you, especially like when it comes to managing the sales team, or like just anyone that's like super pumped at being in the industry of sales currently, or just the people coming up, because I know you've already given a lot of advice, but what would you say is like the main piece of advice, just to tie into like all those different senior levels in sales?
Yeah, man, and it's probably what I'm going to provide is just kind of a recap of everything we talked about. There's going to be some overlap there, but I would say continuously update your skills, right? And that kind of falls in line with being uncomfortable, right? Just continuously be a perpetual student, continue learning, right? Stay informed about industry trends in your given industry, right?
Yeah,
You need to know what's happening in your industry because things are moving fast these days,
yeah,
Um, and like we spoke to just a minute ago, network, build relationships, talk to people, right? Ask them, what they do, why they do it. These are such great open-ended questions that I don't think, especially a lot of younger salespeople understand the value of, right? It's
yeah.
just there's so much to learning about a person, like just what I've learned about you. There's value to that to me,
No,
right?
thank you. Likewise.
The fact that you sold these roundtable sessions to these Fortune 500 companies, that's awesome. It's not an easy thing to do. That tells me more about you, right?
No, thank you. And like there is like similarities there already, like between, me and you, and I'm on the other side of the pond to you. You're on the other side of the pond to me. But if we didn't have this conversation, I wouldn't know as much about you right now, and you wouldn't know as much about me. So I 100% agree.
Yeah. What else? Be adaptable, be flexible. Things are going to evolve quickly with AI. And, nobody knows what that means for their respective roles or positions, but just keep an open mind, be adaptable. Don't be so rigid in your approach to your
How you do
whatever
things.
you do, whether it's sales or marketing or whatever. Don't be so rigid in that you're not willing to adapt to change because that's going to be and for so many people, even outside of sales, even operations, just basic retail functions, there's going to be some disruption, and you got to be able to adapt.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. Like I appreciate the words of wisdom, and no, like it's truly been like a great episode, and I appreciate you coming on the show. And then obviously I do something very similar to CEO cast, not CEO cast, sorry, a diary of a CEO. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure you're familiar with that podcast,
Yep.
it's one of the biggest, podcasts within this space currently. And basically, Stephen Bartlett, he asks his guests, like a question to bring over to the next guest, right? So, a
Yep.
question that the previous guest has brought over to you is, how did you get your first customer outside of your network? So that's not your, like your cousin, for example, or your friend, but how did you get your first customer, your first client outside of your network?
Okay. Is that in regard to my current position or any position I've held?
Your first ever customer or client.
You're gonna love this, man. Okay.
Go
All
on, let's
right.
go, let's go.
Dude,
I'm
dude,
fired up.
dude, my first ever sales job was door knocking, selling knives door to door.
Selling knives door to door.
Yeah. And then, man, we're going way back. This is like mid 90s. So the way I got my first customer outside of family and friends, because that's how these MLM companies they get you hooked, right? Is practice your pitch on your family and friends first and hope they buy, right? So they buy and then you ask them who they know. And anyway, my first customer outside of family or friends or a referral was a cold door knock.
Nice. So it was a cold,
And
like, but can you actually remember like what the, like what the actual conversation was like what the sales cycle was like, like the demographic of the person, like the
yeah,
age, like the gender, like, can you talk us a little bit more, like about that?
100%, man, because I was so damn nervous that it's still very clear as day to me. Knocking on, and it turned out to be kind of a middle-aged woman that was
Okay.
single, living
Okay.
on her own. And keep in mind, I was a teenage kid, and I was selling my knives. It was Cutco knives. Those in the U.S. will know the Cutco knife brand. Anyway, she allowed me into her home. I had told her that, I'm just a young kid trying to, learn sales, and that I felt that I had these knives and I thought they were pretty good quality. I remember using that word thought. It's like, I wasn't very confident. I was like, I think they're pretty good knives because, as you learn the sales process for that particular company, they teach you different ways, like taking your knife and cutting through a rope because a rope, has, you know, the threads that or whatever that simulate muscle. So
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
cut the rope and you do it multiple times, and I thought that was pretty cool. Anyway, I just remember I wasn't very confident, but I went through my pitch like I had practiced, and I think she purchased probably more out of not sympathy, but she just wanted to give me a win. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Can you remember the deal size?
Oh, it was I want to say it was like 120 bucks for the set.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
not big, man. It was not
No,
big.
but yeah, but like it's a start, like it's a start. Like that's
Yeah.
really wow, like that's really, really interesting. And then would you say that that first sell fired you up to get, to get the next sell? Because what I've heard is that, once you make a win, even like a small win, like it actually increases your, like your drive and like your urge to win. So do you feel like that first sell like got you more pumped and helped you to get the next one?
Totally. Yeah, totally. It's like anything in life, man. Let's say you're trying to learn to play golf, right?
Yeah,
And you go out to
which
the
I
driving
don't know
range.
how to play. I don't
But
I can't even stand. I can't even stand right.
but let's say you wanted to learn golf and you go out to the driving range and you swing and you miss the ball 10 times, right?
Yeah.
But then on the 11th swing, you make pretty good contact, and it's not a great shot, but it goes down the driving range and it's pretty straight, and you're like, okay, that was pretty cool. So that
Yeah.
that gives you the the it gives you the
Drive.
motivation. It gives you the motivation to hit 10 more. And right, it's just like that in sales.
Yeah,
Definitely agree with that. Yeah.
because you know that you can do it. And I think that, like that's one thing about sales too, is that, like there's also the theory of if you could sell one thing, you could kind of sell something else. Like, do you agree with that? Or do you not like agree with that, kind of thesis?
No, I agree with that.
Okay, you
And
agree
you
with
know
that.
what? Honestly, I
Me too.
honestly feel, Ryan, that there are some people out there in this world that would be great salespeople, but for whatever reason, they're held back by limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and if you don't mind, I'd like to make a few book recommendations, and I'll tie this
Please.
together with,
Please, like
yeah,
let's do that. Like on the last
yeah,
pod as well, we also done the same thing. I want
yeah.
you to give your your book recommendations, and then like the top three books that you enjoy the most, and then after that, like your top three entrepreneurs.
Ooh, you're gonna throw six at me. Okay, all right. Let's start with sales books. Okay. I mean, there's some classics out there. I mean, for your audience who may be a little younger, the books by Zig Ziglar, like "See You at the Top."
I've got one of his books.
Okay, Zig is awesome. I mean, a great man. I love his content, and a lot of it's been lost to time. Right? That's unfortunate because he's got some great books out there. For the newer salespeople, Neil Rackham, Spin Selling.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I know about spin selling. I know about band selling. I know about yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Neil Rackham, any content by him is pretty solid. Um, and this is a classic. I'm sorry, but I think it really drives home everything you and I have been speaking about. But Og Mandino's the greatest salesman in the world.
Oh yeah, he's a guy that was selling cars, right? Like he sold like, X amount of cars. Is that the guy?
No, this is a different guy. Yeah,
Okay,
but
okay, okay, go
so
ahead.
yeah, Og Mandino did the greatest salesman in the world series. And I think there's a lot of great nuggets to be taken away from that, talking about integrity and being genuine. And so, yeah.
Yeah. And then now we're on to like, did you already give your book recommendations, by the way?
Not yet, not yet, but
Okay.
I'm gonna give you one right now that's relevant to those who are trying to break into enterprise or big mid-market organizations, those doing about 400 or 500 million more a year.
Let's do it.
And this one just came out about 2 months ago, and it's called Busting Silos.
Busting
And
silos. Like I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna take that recommendation right now.
yeah, and it was written by Hillary Carpio and Travis Henry. They're the team at Snowflake. I don't know if you're familiar with Snowflake,
Yes,
but Snowflake,
I've actually invested in the app, funny enough.
right on, there you go. Yeah.
I invested
And
in
you probably know, no, you probably know they're one of the fastest growing companies to get to that unicorn status ever, to get to 1 billion in annual revenue ever.
yeah, like I invested in them I think it was like early last year, so I don't know if I was too late, but like yeah, like they send me well they used to send me like like board decisions and
Yeah,
stuff like that because
yeah,
I invested in them. So like I used to join some of them and like kind of have a like a say based on what I know about, the CEO already that's that, like that was running the company. So like that's really really interesting. I've actually typed that in now and I'm gonna add that to my list. And then so yeah, like I appreciate the recommendation. And then when it comes to your top three entrepreneurs, like obviously Alex Hormozi is one, of course, but the other two, like who would the other two be?
oh man, that's a hard one. There's so many good ones out there. Um, so one I've been following recently because I kind of have an interest in acquisition entrepreneurship, right? So there's a kind of a movement in the US to buy these businesses as the older generation starts to pass away and retire.
Yeah.
And there's a young lady, love her content. Her name's Cody Sanchez.
Oh yeah, I know about her, of course.
Okay,
Like
yeah,
of
love,
course, like Cody Sanchez, like she basically goes hand in hand with Alex Hormozi. Even Alex
right, right.
Hormozi's wife, like, she's also, like a genius in this space too.
Yeah, Layla. I mean, but you know what ties all those three together, my friend? They're genuine. They are who they are. They're not, you don't get the feeling you're being sold, right?
Yeah. Or like misled. And funny enough, like, like this would probably be like the first podcast that talks about this, right? But my thing is, like, I've started to notice that there's like all these people popping up on like LinkedIn all of a sudden, position themselves as like some kind of guru, right? Like, I'm not sure if you've noticed that, but
For
I'm getting
sure.
like
Yeah.
flooded by like just random people that I've never seen before and people that have probably just made the account yesterday and all of a sudden they're business gurus. And like, what do you think about all of that?
That's what I'm saying, man, is that some of these influencers are creating this culture where they make
Yeah.
it look easy. Hey, just throw up a landing page, create a click funnel, right? That's all you need
Oh
to do.
yeah.
It's that
I
easy.
know I
Like,
know all about ClickFunnels. I used
yeah,
to
it's
also be
like,
a member.
just yeah, it's crazy, man. Trying to think who I picked for a third one.
Is this the book, by the way? Let me show you on screen. This is the
Yeah,
book, right?
excellent,
Okay.
excellent. And man, I just give you a quick summary. I'm not going to spoil anything.
Okay.
They are the first organization that has aligned marketing and sales and done it right.
Yeah, because I mean, look, like sales and marketing go hand in hand anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think,
Stop treating them separate. If you're a large enterprise
please
organization, yeah,
tell them again, like, stop treating
yeah,
sales and marketing separately. I think, for me personally, I think the only difference between sales and marketing is one is more direct, like one is the actual process, How could you take Okay, so marketing is like, okay, like I'm putting this out there. I have this phone, I'm putting it out there, right? And then I think that, from that, obviously someone is going to send through an inquiry that they're interested in the phone based on the content that I put out. But then sales now is how can I harness that lead? Do you know what I mean? How can I make that lead purchase that? And that's how I would differentiate the two, but they both go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other.
and think about this, my friend. Think about what sales can do for marketing, because there's data that sales can take back to marketing to help marketing with their messaging. Number one, the what of the messaging, but number two, the where.
The
What I
where.
mean by that is, right, sales, they're the front line. So
Yeah,
if the sales team, regardless of size, I don't care if you're a small business doing, $1 million a year, or you're a like Costco is our biggest client,
yeah,
right? If
you're
you're
a
Costco,
shark.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Um, guess what? Sales has valuable data they can bring back to you, or you can pull from their CRM on who they're talking to.
Yeah,
Because if you're a marketer, does it help you to know that, this segment over here has been, very engaged with sales the last 90 days where they weren't a year prior?
a
So
million, a
you,
million percent, a million
right.
percent.
You know what I'm saying? It's a relationship, and it's got to be a close knit relationship with good communication.
No,
So,
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely, absolutely, 100%, 100%. So I guess, yeah, so like, did you pick your third entrepreneur, by the way? Because I know
You
that
know,
you.
I know I kind of maybe not intentionally, but dissed on him earlier, but it'd probably be Grant Cardone.
Okay, there
I,
you go.
I just
Go ahead.
okay, let me just be brutally honest here. What I don't like, because I've signed up for some of Grant's stuff just
Please do
to
not get me
gauge.
cancelled by Grant Cardone. But go
No,
ahead.
no, I'm not. No, no. But here's the thing: is I signed up for his content, which I love. I love Grant Cardone. But then the calls and emails I get from his team.
Oh yeah, I know, insane. I actually used to follow I think it's Brandon. I think it's Brandon from his team. I'm not sure if you're like familiar with
Oh
him.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. But go ahead.
But yeah, they're nonstop. And I mean, I'm in sales. I get it. When I just say, you know what, I'm not interested in the paid product. I just wanted to consume, this event or whatever.
Yeah,
But they don't quit. It's like, and that's what I'm talking about with this culture of, you know, it's not, I'm sorry, but a hard close will never lead to a long-term customer or long-term customer value.
I
Does that
love
make
that.
sense?
That would even make a good like a good title too, or that would make a good quote for the thumbnail. But yeah,
Yeah.
that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. And then I guess now because you've like you picked your three best books, you've actually given us a book recommendation as well. So I appreciate you for that. I'm actually going to make a purchase of that book. And then like you spoke about your top three favorite entrepreneurs. So my question is now. What question have you got for the next guest that comes onto the show?
Awesome, man. Awesome. Because I enjoy so much learning about people, like I've enjoyed learning about you on this call.
Thank
My
you.
next question would be, what is one key lesson or insight they have gained from a challenging experience in their career, and how has that experience influenced their approach to their professional growth and development?
Okay, so I've got key lesson or insight that they've learned in their career, and how has that led to their growth and development, right?
But I wanted to be a lesson or insight from a challenging experience, something that was
Okay.
really challenging to them. What did they learn from that, and how's it affected their growth?
Okay, experience and how has it affected your growth? Okay, perfect, perfect. And then where can the people find you?
All right, so rocketsource.com, just like it sounds, ROCKETSOURCE.com. And we're on LinkedIn with the same name. So those are our channels right now.
Amazing, amazing. And me being the like the salesperson that I am, like I'm pretty sure you guys already have, like a marketing team that kind of deals with your Instagram, your TikTok, your X as they now call it, your YouTube.
Because we're mainly enterprise B2B, we don't play a lot in those spaces. So most of honestly, because we've done so well with revenue expansion with existing clients and we need to scale responsibly, going after new logos has all been via our website and thought leadership content on the website.
Would you be interested, or like, do you think it would be, beneficial for the company maybe to, like get some short form content, out of the videos that already exists, or like to kind of come up with new strategies to create short form content that can then be distributed across different channels just to get more of an audience onto the website?
No, I think there is value to that. Once we launch, we've got some new products that are coming out, services around digital maturity,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
AI readiness, right, for these large organizations because their data is so siloed, it has not been democratized properly within the organization that a lot of these big companies that want to interact with AI or implement AI just aren't ready,
Yeah.
right? So we're going to start doing some digital maturity modeling and some AI readiness type of stuff. Once that's ready to put in the water and go to market, I think there could be some value to that. So you and I'll stay in touch.
Yeah, no, like 1,000,000% we will. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate all of the value, that you've given to the audience. And yeah, for everybody watching, especially until the end of the video, you guys are amazing. You guys are a star. make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure that you guys, drop a like, make sure that you guys drop a comment, because that would help push this video out to the people that truly need it. And also like share, guys, share around to people that would get value, from this video. And make sure you go and follow and also interact with Tom as well. And I will see you in the next episode.